Imagine a missile built by a nation under fire, rolling off the production line at home, aimed deep inside its adversary's territory, not 500 kilometers, not 1,000, but 3,000 kilometers. Meet the Ukrainian long-range cruise missile known as the FP-5 Flamingo. In August 2025, it made its public debut, and suddenly the map of risk for one of Europe's great powers shifted. Let us rewind. After the full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022, Kyiv found that even with Western aid, it remained handicapped by one big restriction. Many high-end strike weapons came with strings attached. Do not hit Russian territory. Stay a certain number of kilometers from the border. Ask for approval first. When you are fighting for survival, having your hands tied feels like playing chess with only pawns. So Ukraine asked a harder question. Why not build one ourselves? A missile with real reach, no external license, no political strings, fired by Ukrainians for Ukraine's defense. That is where the defense startup Firepoint enters the stage. In secret, they developed what would become the FP-5 Flamingo, a ground-launched cruise missile with a claimed range of around 3,000 kilometers, a warhead in the 1,000-plus kilogram class, and full domestic production. The reveal landed in mid-August 2025 with images and briefings that signaled a new phase in Ukraine's deep strike campaign. It is a bold ambition, a country at war building a strategic strike system at home while under bombardment. That is where our story begins. So, technical nerds and non-nerds alike, strap in. Here are the key characteristics that make Flamingo stand out. The FP-5 Flamingo is described as a ground-launched cruise missile with a range of roughly 3,000 kilometers, which is about 1,900 miles. Several open sources put the warhead around 1,150 kilograms. Launch weight is reported near 6 tons. Cruise speed sits in the 850 to 900 kilometers per hour range, with a maximum near 950. The airframe spans roughly 6 meters. These figures come from a mix of official remarks and trade or analytical reporting since the public reveal. As with any new system, the numbers are still crystallizing in the public domain. Guidance appears to rely on GPS or GNSS with an inertial backup, likely with anti-jam features and potentially terrain following. What is less clear is whether Flamingo fields the full suite of terrain matching or optical scene matching that made older Western cruise missiles so precise. The available open sources emphasize GNSS and INS rather than more complex legacy packages, so we should treat advanced guidance claims with caution until more data appears. What does all of that translate to on a battlefield? It means Ukraine potentially has a weapon that can reach deep into rear areas, not just command posts near the front, but refineries, logistics hubs, air bases, and production lines that sit far from the fighting. With a warhead mass measured in over a metric ton, the missile is designed to break things that matter. There are press claims of substantial concrete penetration, which would be consistent with that mass, although independent test data remains sparse in public. I will flag that last point as informed analysis rather than verified fact. With the specs out of the way, let us talk about industrial muscle and actual use. Ukrainian officials and Firepoint representatives said serial production began in 2025, with ambitions to scale rapidly. Early statements referenced output around 1 missile per day in mid-2025, with a target of roughly 210 per month by October. Subsequent European reporting spoke of monthly tallies climbing from about 30 to around 50, with a runway to 200 as supply chains stabilized. The direction of travel is what matters here. Ukraine is trying to normalize long-range cruise missile production during wartime. That sentence would have sounded unbelievable 3 years ago. As for operations, the missile was publicly revealed in August 2025, with Ukrainian sources and analysts pointing to initial combat use against targets in Crimea soon after. Specifics remain limited for obvious reasons. Even so, the reveal, the scale-up messaging, and the subsequent chatter from defense watchers all point in the same direction. Flamingo moved from showpiece to fielded asset during late summer and early autumn 2025. Treat individual strike claims cautiously until independently corroborated, but do not miss the strategic picture. The capability exists, and it is being integrated. Here is the necessary reality check. Flamingo is large and not stealthy in the sense we use that word for aircraft. Russian long-range air defense, from S-300 and S-400 families to newer systems, has been tested by years of cruise missile and drone raids. Analysts expect a good share of Flamingos to be intercepted, and some commentary floats figures as high as 80%. The remaining portion that penetrates can still cause outsized effects because of the payload. That ratio is an analytical estimate rather than a verified statistic, and I am clearly labeling it as such. The truth will live in the after-action photos and the availability of replacement missiles and spare parts. Now the comparison everyone wants. How does Flamingo stack up next to two well-known Western cruise missiles, the American Tomahawk and the Franco-British Storm Shadow? Tomahawk first. The widely cited Block 4 variant carries a unitary warhead in the 1,000-pound class, roughly 450 kilograms, and has a range around 900 nautical miles, which is approximately 1,600 kilometers. It also brings mature guidance combinations that include GPS and INS, plus terrain contour matching and optical scene matching in earlier variants, together with impressive mission planning tools. These are not paper specs. Tomahawk has decades of combat use and a large body of test data. Storm Shadow next. This is an air-launched standoff missile in service with the United Kingdom and France, adapted for Ukrainian aircraft. It weighs about 1,300 kilograms, carries a warhead in the 450 kilogram class, and is typically quoted with a range beyond 250 kilometers, with some sources suggesting figures up to around 560 depending on configuration. Its broach warhead is a two-stage design for hard targets, and its guidance combines INS, GPS, and terrain profiling to deliver bunker buster effects with high precision. Storm Shadow is also combat proven. Flamingo lastly. On paper, it promises the longest reach by a significant margin, around 3,000 kilometers, with the heaviest stated warhead of the three, approximately 1,150 kilograms. That would make it a strategic freight train of a cruise missile, with the caveat that its guidance suite appears simpler than the older Western models, at least in the publicly described configuration. The system is new and less battle-proven in the public record, which means its real-world accuracy, survivability, and reliability will be watched closely by every air defender from Belgorod to the Urals. Treat Flamingo's most ambitious figures as promising but still maturing. If you prefer an everyday analogy, Storm Shadow is the reliable courier for premium deliveries across town. Tomahawk is your nationwide overnight service with decades of receipts. Flamingo is the heavy freight service that can haul your package across continents. Everyone along the route will see it coming, and stopping it takes serious effort. What does this capability mean for the war? First, Flamingo lets Ukraine credibly threaten deep rear infrastructure that had been relatively insulated from regular drone and missile raids. The psychological effect of a long-range, heavy warhead missile is almost as potent as the physical damage. It says that nowhere is safely out of reach. The IISS framed the program's implications in similar terms when it discussed the system's arrival in early September. Second, domestic production is the real unlock. By building the missile at home, Ukraine reduces dependence on Western approvals and export licenses. That autonomy changes the calculus in targeting and signaling. A Reuters report in September also showed the program's industrial footprint expanding beyond Ukraine's borders, with a fuel production site planned in Denmark, which in turn triggered Moscow's diplomatic ire. That is the sort of ripple effect you only see when a capability starts to matter. Third, Russia now faces a resource allocation problem. It must spread air defense assets to protect refineries, power nodes, and command facilities far from the front while still defending critical areas near the battlefield. Stretch a network and you find the gaps. A German outlet captured this trade-off while noting the rising monthly production tallies and the early hints of combat use. Fourth, in the international arena, Ukraine looks less like a permanent recipient of aid and more like a defense producer in its own right. That shift brings negotiating leverage that no communique can replicate. Here is the necessary caution. Launching large cruise missiles is costly and logistically demanding. Interception will happen. Even the best raid plans leak. Flamingo should be seen as one tool in a layered Ukrainian strike portfolio rather than a single silver bullet. Time to be the realist in the room. Size matters for radar cross-section and detection, and Flamingo is not a small missile. Russian air defense has had years of practice engaging subsonic cruise profiles. Even if a fraction leak through, that still means others will be intercepted. My earlier mention of an 80-20 split reflects analytical commentary rather than a verified statistic, and I will not pretend otherwise. Production speed is an ambition colliding with wartime reality. The Danish fuel plan is a helpful mitigation, but the overall enterprise lives under the constant threat of strikes on industrial infrastructure. Every month that passes without major disruption is a quiet victory. Cost matters too. A heavy cruise missile consumes high-grade engines, precision guidance packages, and quality control hours that drones do not. Flamingo raids should be reserved for targets where that mass and reach make strategic sense. Finally, long-range strikes walk alongside questions of international law and escalation management. The Guardian's late August coverage flagged how the reveal itself became wrapped into messaging about escalation and deterrence. A serious country treats both the legal framing and the political signaling as part of the operation. Let us zoom into the sky for a moment. Subsonic cruise missiles live or die by altitude, routing, and deception. The usual profile is low altitude to exploit radar horizons, with terrain masking where possible. Without advanced scene matching, a missile leans harder on reliable GNSS reception and robust inertial navigation to keep the line tight. On the other side, layered Russian air defense tries to pick up the low flyers with overlapping search and engagement radars, then cue interceptors and surface-to-air batteries along the likely path. This battle of measure and countermeasure is why Flamingo will likely be paired with saturating raids that include decoy drones, loitering munitions, and perhaps standoff jammers to stress defenders. Think of it less as a solo recital and more as a symphony where the first violins are trying to drown out the percussion long enough for the heavy brass to hit the note. Because Flamingo is ground-launched, survivable basing becomes doctrine. Ukraine will want dispersed transporter erector launchers, rapid shoot-and-scoot tactics, and camouflaged reload sites. It will lean on deceptive road moves and emission control to complicate Russian ISR. The doctrine also includes pacing. You do not fire 100 heavy cruise missiles where 10 will do the job, and you do not dribble them out so slowly that defenders relax and redeploy. The art is in choosing windows when weather, radar clutter, and distraction all favor the offense. You will see viral posts claiming a Flamingo hit here or there. Healthy skepticism is your friend. Look for crater analysis, debris identification, and consistent timing across independent feeds. The reveal in August, plus IISS and European defense reporting in September and October, gives us a credible frame. Outside that frame, treat unsourced claims as unconfirmed until imagery and consistent corroboration appear. That is not being coy. It is how you keep your channel trustworthy. One last note on comparisons so your viewers leave with the right mental model. Tomahawk is the mature, refittable, extensively tested benchmark with a long record and the 900 nautical mile class range on Block 4. Storm Shadow is a surgical tool built to punch hard targets from the air with a sophisticated broach warhead and standoff reach past 250 kilometers in standard descriptions, with some configurations reported to extend further. Flamingo's selling point is reach and payload on a ground-launched platform that Ukraine controls end-to-end. All three are subsonic, all three rely on deception and routing to beat defenses, and only two have deep combat pedigrees. That does not diminish Flamingo's promise. It simply places it where it belongs, in late 2025. Looking ahead, reporting suggests that Firepoint is iterating. Longer-range variants, different warhead options, and more mobile launch solutions are all being discussed in Ukrainian media and policy circles. The broader European industrial picture hints at a supply chain that is slowly hardening against disruption. If that continues, Flamingo will shift from headline to background noise, which is exactly what a strategic capability wants to become. For viewers, the takeaway is simple. Wartime accelerates technology. What felt impossible in 2020 can be real in 2025. Hardware without strategy is just expensive metal, but well-chosen capabilities change the terms of a conflict. Flamingo does not guarantee victory. It guarantees options, and options change minds. When your opponent is thinking twice, you are already shaping the battlefield. Thanks for staying with this deep dive. If this breakdown helped you cut through the noise, like and subscribe so we can keep building a library of clear sourced military analysis. Tell me in the comments what system you want next, whether that is air defense, drones, or the quiet revolutions in electronic warfare. I will see you in the next one, and until then, keep your thinking sharp.